Back when we were in school, they taught us that Nigeria gained independence in 1960, and oh, it was a happy day for us all. It meant that we were finally free from the rule of the British. Power to the people. Well, keep an open mind, because what you're about to learn will make you question all your years in school. Brace yourself.
The British didn't travel halfway across the world just to spread democracy. Nigeria started off as a business deal for them.
Nigeria. Yes, the same Nigeria we all know. The beating heart of West Africa. Rich in culture, overflowing with natural resources, and home to over 200 million people, was once sold. Yes, sold. Not for billions. Certainly not for trillions. Just for 865,000 pounds sterling. That's it. A nation, its people, the land, rivers, hills, mountains, everything was just handed over for a price that by today's standard is what some CEOs spend on private jets or vacation homes or other frivolous things. Pocket change to the billionaire circle. And no, it wasn't even a government-to-government transaction. This deal was between the British Crown and a single company, not a country, a business. Now, here's where things get spicy. The real villain in this story isn't just the British Empire or Queen Victoria sipping tea while Africa burns. No, it was the British businessman behind the scenes, pulling the strings, signing the deals, and raking in the profits like it was Black Friday on a continent-wide scale. Enter Sir George Goldie. If you really want to understand how Nigeria ended up in British hands, you've only got to talk about one man, Sir George Taubman Goldie. He wasn't a soldier or a politician. He wasn't out conquering lands with armies. No. Goldie was something even more dangerous in the long run. A businessman with a colonial dream. And not just any businessman. He was the mastermind who quietly laid the foundation for what would become modern Nigeria, all under the guise of trade. Born in 1846 on the Isle of Man, Goldie wasn't interested in flags or medals. He was interested in power. But instead of grabbing it with guns, he built an empire through contracts, trade routes, and backdoor deals. His weapon of choice? The Royal Niger Company. A corporate empire that looked like a business on paper, but acted more like a private government. It had its own flag, its own army, and could sign treaties, collect taxes, and basically run huge parts of West Africa as it pleased. And that's exactly what it did. Goldie personally oversaw the signing of over 400 treaties with local chiefs, some of whom had no idea what they were giving up. In exchange for liquor, clothes, or weapons, they signed documents that handed over control of their land, people, and resources. Goldie's company locked down trade, kicked out European competition, especially the French, and created what was essentially a shadow state along the Niger River. By the time the British government stepped in to officially take over in 1900, all the hard work had already been done. The Royal Niger Company simply handed over its property, millions of lives, vast stretches of land for the price of 865,000 pounds. And just like that, the same Royal Niger Company eventually moved into UAC, United Africa Company, which later became part of Unilever. So when we talk about multinationals having deep roots in Africa, we're not kidding. Some of them go all the way back to the literal selling of Nigeria. George Goldie didn't just influence Nigeria. He shaped its borders, its economy, and its fate. And he didn't do it with an army, but with a pen, a ledger, and an unshakable belief that West Africa could be bought. And he was right. Now, the same Unilever makes your Lux soap, Blue Band margarine, Lipton tea, Omo detergent, and a whole aisle of stuff in your local supermarket and in your fridge. Let that sink in. The company that once owned Nigeria is still very much here. Not in military boots or colonial uniforms anymore, but in flashy branding and multinational boardrooms. They've traded muskets for marketing, and somehow they're still in control of what we eat, what we use, what we wear, and what we value. But this is not what we were told, was it? Like Burna Boy sang,
Since 1960, then they play us wild.
So, next time you're spreading Blue Band or your toast, or washing your clothes in Omo, just remember, this isn't just a company selling products. This is a company with a legacy that includes literally selling a country. But this is only the beginning. Let's get a little deeper. Let's go back to that number, £865,000. That's the price the British government paid the Royal Niger Company in 1900 to take over Nigeria. This doesn't sound like much, to be honest. And really, it wasn't even back then. It was a steal. Of course, the $1 million, or should we say £865 question is, who actually got that money? Of course, as you would have guessed, it wasn't Nigerians. That cash went straight into the pockets of British businessmen. George Goldie and his crew, who ran the Royal Niger Company like their own private empire, walked away with a sweet payout. They didn't build Nigeria, they didn't ask Nigerians, and they definitely didn't compensate the millions of people living on that land. They sold an entire nation like a warehouse of expired goods, and got rich doing it. It begs the question, who lost? Of course, the people. The communities whose rivers and forests were seized. The farmers who suddenly needed permission to access their land their ancestors had farmed for generations. Kingdoms were stripped of power. The markets flooded with foreign goods. Culture slowly rewritten by corporate interest. Here's where it gets even heavier, because the costs didn't stop in 1900. We're still paying for that deal. In our economy today, where multinationals still dominate our industries, in our food systems, where imported brands get more shelf space than local ones, in our psyche, where foreign products are often seen as better, cleaner, more trustworthy, in our land, where old colonial contracts still determine who controls what. £865,000 was just the down payment. The real cost has been paid over decades in lost ownership, lost opportunity, and a lost identity. So yeah, Nigeria got sold. But maybe the more honest question is, will we ever get it back? After the Royal Niger Company sold Nigeria to the British government for that infamous £865,000, they didn't just disappear into the pages of history. Oh no, they just changed names, moved things around, and kept doing what they were already good at, taking and owning everything in sight. That company evolved into something called the United Africa Company, or UAC. And trust me, UAC wasn't just some small-time trading outfit. It was a monster. A massive colonial operation with its fingers in every pie. If it could be grown, bought, sold, shipped, or consumed in Nigeria, UAC had a stake in it. We're talking full control here. Not just in palm oil, which by the way was like crude oil back then, super valuable. They were in soap, canned food, timber, shipping, real estate, and even advertising. They didn't just move goods around. They owned the ports, built the warehouses, and sometimes even owned the shops where Nigerians bought their products. They were the factory, the middleman, and the seller all rolled into one. You want to talk logistics? UAC had its own fleet. You want to talk about marketing? UAC pioneered advertising in West Africa, shaping what people wanted and thought they needed. They told people what to buy and why it made them more modern. And guess what? That messaging usually involved buying something British, shiny, and conveniently made by ding 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 UAC. Okay, let's talk about Unilever. By the mid-20th century, UAC joined forces with other colonial-era trade giants and merged into Unilever, which was becoming a global consumer goods titan. That move didn't just consolidate business, it solidified decades of economic dominance. Unilever, through UAC Nigeria, didn't just operate in Nigeria, it operated like it owned Nigeria. And in many ways, it did. There were points in time when UAC was so big, so powerful, and so embedded in Nigeria's economy that it basically functioned as a shadow government. They didn't need to pass laws. They could influence the people who did. Their money moved politicians. Their imports moved the markets. And their factories powered entire cities. Imagine a company so vast that it's setting prices, shaping demand, and dictating supply. And there's no local competition strong enough to challenge it. That was UAC. That's still the corporate skeleton behind Unilever today. So when we look at Unilever now and see it just as a multinational selling soap and seasoning cubes, we're only seeing the surface. Beneath that packaging is a legacy that stretches back to colonial conquest, trade monopolies, and literal nation-selling deals. It's not just history. It's power that never really left. Let's talk about something even deeper than land or money. Influence. Because sometimes, real control doesn't come with a flag or a gun. Sometimes it comes in a tin of powdered milk or a bar of soap. You see, Unilever didn't just sell products in Nigeria. They sold dreams, aspirations, a whole idea of what it meant to be modern, clean, successful, and beautiful. And it started way back, decades ago, when they weren't even called Unilever yet. Back in the UAC days, they were already the masters of early advertising. These weren't just basic posters saying, "Buy this." No. They were full-blown campaigns built around shaping Nigerian minds. They sold European standards like they were universal truths. Soap ads showed lighter-skinned women as the image of cleanliness. Magazines pushed the idea that being proper meant being more British in your manners, your dress, your food. Children grew up watching commercials that told them that good mothers fed their kids Blue Band and good wives kept the house smelling like sunlight. Let's pause here and ask a wild but real question. If a company decides what you eat, how you look, what's attractive, what's modern, and what's uncivilized, who's really running the show? Because it's one thing to control trade, it's another thing to entirely colonize identity. And that's exactly what Unilever did, and still does in many ways. They weren't just in your kitchen or bathroom. They were in your mind. They helped rewrite what success looked like. They helped replace traditional beauty standards, foods, fabrics, and hygiene practices with foreign ones, all wrapped in a glossy packaging and catchy slogans. It wasn't just commerce. It was cultural engineering. And over time, Nigerian tastes, behavior, architecture, and even aspirations started to reflect not local roots, but corporate influence. This shaped a version of Nigerianness that was subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, defined by foreign ideals. So sure, we gained political independence in 1960, but culturally, economically, psychologically, that group never really loosened up. But hey, we don't have to stay in the past. Nigeria today is available for you to have your own slice of the cake. There's a lot of ways you can do that through real estate investment. Contact us to get started. See you in the next one.